Nietzsche himself, like in his writing, I think you got to be a bit careful with him because, like Nietzsche, the man, was quite a bag of tricks. You know, he was himself struggling in many ways, especially socially, and the result of that, it seems to be that within Nietzsche there was quite a strong rejection of the ordinary man within him as well. He was quite an exceptionalist in that sense. And I was reading Carl Jung's. Carl Jung did this seminar series back in the 30s, where he basically read uh, "Thus Spoke Zarathustra" as if it was a dream that he was conducting dream analysis on. And I've been reading through that, and it's fascinating how he identifies all of these different examples of essentially the unconscious telling on him of what he's doing without him essentially noticing. So the image at the beginning of Thus Spoke Zarathustra has he comes down from his high mountain, and there's an old man in the woods who hasn't heard yet that God is dead, and that old man is supposed to represent the old mode of evaluation, the Christian mode of evaluation, and he's sort of reverted back to the beasts in the woods because he's not accepted as much in society anymore. So that mode of evaluation has become a hermit, but the people on the ground don't really have a replacement yet, and so he goes down to this town called the Motley Cow, and he starts essentially trying to preach to the people, but they don't want any of it. They don't want to hear it. And as he's preaching to them, this rope dancer just starts walking this tightrope between two buildings, and he starts doing his performance and totally fails because the jester comes out behind him and jumps over him. So from Carl Jung's perspective, the jester was like essentially a symbolic representation of Nietzsche's shadow, of the shadow side of Zarathustra, which was the sort of archetype he was being possessed by at the time. And the rope dancer was the the ordinary man in him that was trying to do this thing but was not up for the task. And so he ends up falling to his death and dying. And whether you want to believe this part or not is up to you, but it's a funny interpretation where Zarathustra says something funny to the man before he dies. He says this stuff about trying to do an impossible task and respecting him for that. And then he says, but don't fear, because your soul will be dead long before your body, which is like sounds awfully a lot like a premonition about Nietzsche's own fate, which is that by essentially dying to this task, this insurmountable task, and not properly dealing with that jester, with that shadow, his soul, his mind will die long before his body. And what ended up happening to Nietzsche was that his mind died 10 years before his body. He went completely crazy and lost his mind, and and there's that image as well of that sort of catalyzed his insanity was when he sort of jumped on that horse out of sympathy. And I've heard some debate as to whether or not it actually happened. I don't exactly know, but it seems like it would make sense. And Carl Jung believed that it happened because it was essentially like a sudden rushing back, or like springing back of the ordinary man who has sympathy for others and understands people, essentially coming back onto the scene with such force that it broke the whole psyche, because you can't actually get rid of a part of yourself. It's not possible. So yeah, it's important to not be resentful of dominance and power and health and vitality and all of these master morality values. The key takeaway, I think, is to really learn to overcome your resentment of those things. But that's not to say that you need to form a sort of reactionary, all-out attack on everything that isn't dominance, power, beauty, striving, etc.